Hello, my peeps. For show and tell today, we're going to have story time. And the story is called What If? I'm your author, commentator, narrator, Tracey, Stampin' Up Demonstrator, the paper pusher, and giddy little girl because I got to play all day long. Now, here's the thing. It all started once upon a time. Tracey wanted to use the Gift of Joy stamp set, which I made a bunch of cards with, to make a card that had all of the images on it because I love them, and I've made like a thing with presents and a thing with ornaments and a thing, but I wanted to put all of them on one card, kind of like a quilt. So in the back of my mind, I'm thinking I need to make my little Gift of Joy quilt because I love it. So one day, I'm walking through the woods. One day, I was looking for something on the Stampin' Up store, and I see this picture. This is one of the online exclusives, the Gathering Together Suite, and this is their promo picture with a bunch of samples they made. And what do I spy? Let's see how many references of children's stories I can remember. But this little card in the background. And I looked at it and I was like, oh, I like that. Look how nice and clean. I'm in my clean and simple era. Um, Look how nice that card is. I could use it for all those little things. So into my craft room I go. And I get out my little pieces of paper. And I'm just going on, like, looking at it. So this is what I came up with. I just used some white paper just because I thought originally I thought I would stamp on it, and then I'm like, no, I'm going to keep this so I remember what size things are. But this is what I came up with based on this sketch. Okay, is this exactly that picture? I don't know, but to me it looks like I got about the same ½ inch on the top and bottom. These are 1¼ inch, which I will admit I picked that size to start with because I have a punch that's 1¼ inch, and when I did the math, that seemed like what size would fit. And then this is 4 by 1¾ inches. So this is my template. Perfect. So I get out my stamp set and I start putting my little stamps on the squares. Cute. Ooh, that one doesn't really fit very well. That one's a little big. Well, let's put the present in. We'll put a little bow on top of the present. Ooh, that one doesn't really fit in the square either, does it? Okay, well, there's no way that one's going to fit in the square. Huh. Like the layout, squares aren't big enough. Okie dokie. Back to the drawing board. So, I'll tell you a little side story there while I'm, a little side quest, I guess, while I'm putting those away. When the glass mat first came out, I was like, no, I don't think I'm going to like it. I think it's going to get in my way, and I don't think I'm going to like it. And I didn't buy it at first, but then one day I bought it. And I got to tell you, I don't know how I crafted without it. I love it, and I am continually finding new ways to use this thing. So, glass mats. So what I did instead, and in this case, this is a great stamp set because it's 2-step stamping, right? So it comes with an outline stamp and then a filler stamp, which is how I managed to do the wreath. I just used the outline on one part and the filler on the other part. I'll move these down a bit because I realize now I'm very much at the top of the screen. So I laid all the stamps out. Then I took my little dry erase marker and I drew around the stamp. And it doesn't matter that the lines aren't straight. They're kind of straight. So I kind of, and oops, that one went a little high. Kind of went like this. And then I put all the stamps away because you don't want them in the middle. So the beauty of the glass mat is not only can I do this over and over without wasting a whole bunch of paper because I can just erase it and draw again, but all these little squares are 1/4 inch each. So then I just counted how many squares in the stamp to figure out what size it was. Dry erase brush. Very good for your mat. Also, because I write notes on here all the time, I'll make lists and then just take a picture of the list and then erase it because then I have it on my phone and I can look at the picture and when the list is done, I just delete the picture. Believe me, I am finding ways to, so then I had all my sizes of what I needed, right? And I wrote what they were on them so I would remember because if I was going to have to go cut other paper, I needed to remember. So then, figure out what I did in the end. So then in the end, I just moved around a whole bunch until I came up with what I wanted. And then it happened that this is how it came out. And I thought, oh, perfect. Because I will just put the sentiment on a little strip in here. Because I hadn't decided where the sentiment was going yet. So now I have all my little boxes that fit. And I have my Gift of Joy quilt card. And it turned out how I wanted it in my head. I put it on paper and it turned out, and I just love this card. I originally just had the white, like when I was first doing it, I was just laying it out on the background. I like my stuff matted. I don't make a whole lot of single layer cards. I did force myself to later. You'll see later in the story. But I like to mat things. So I did put a mat underneath it. This is one of our standard size mats. 3 3/4 by 5. And whatever math it is, I did, when I had my original sizes, it might have been a little bigger than this, but then when I tried to fit them onto a card, I did do a little bit of trimming, because some of them I did have a bit too much white space around, so I did make it work. But when I laid them all out, I put everything kind of lined up. I started in this corner and I lined up, and then I lined out, and then this way, so that I had all even spacing, and then I just trimmed off this one side, because there was like 1/8 of an inch too much on this side. I so adore how this card turned out. And I will give you a picture of the layout and all the sizes and what mat size it was. But I told you the story was called What If? And this is where that comes in. Because after I did this, I thought, oh, what if you just took a piece of paper, like either that you had either stamped on or better yet DSP, and you just cut it into those sizes? What would that look like? That would look like this. And it turned out better than I thought it would. Again, I was just like, oh my goodness. So this is the Lights of Aurora, I'm pretty sure is the name of the paper. And I took a piece, and see, I wrote the measurements on the board, and then I took a picture of it. And I can't remember what they are, but I'm going to quickly open up my phone and my pictures. And my phone is currently charging, so it's upside down. Here, let me unplug it. So this is how you know. See? The layer... I can't read it upside down. The layer is 3.5 by 4 3/4. Oh, sorry, it's one size smaller than what I said originally. And then if you want to use a whole piece of like white paper or DSP, it's 3.25 by 4.5. So I just took it, and when you look at the layout, which is a different picture, that's this picture. See, when you look at it, you realize, and I will give you that picture, that you have to cut like across here first. Because if you imagine this as one piece of paper, you have to cut this way. Otherwise, because if you try to cut any of the other lines first, you're going to cut into a piece you need. So you cut this piece off first, then you cut this piece off, then you cut these two, right? And that way you can, like, you cut this and cut it in half, cut, and then you're not doing it. So you'll be able to figure it out just by looking at the diagram. But yeah, just take any piece starting, I gave you the starting size, cut it, and then this is like a 1/16 reveal. If you want to have, I like having this big border. If you want to use a bigger mat, you could have bigger spaces in between, or you could just have a wider edge border. You could still have the narrow border here. You do you. So then I thought, what if I just used the scraps I already have of DSP? So we did, this was our holiday head start, and we did using the Peaceful Garden. And so I had cut a bunch of, like, prepped a bunch of card pieces. So I have a ton of pieces in my little DSP bag that are this size. Like, these 6 are all the same size. And I have 2 more on a different card. Or 3 more, I think. They're all, it's about, looking at that, I'd say 1.25 by 1.5 inches. And then this is just a longer strip. And this one I just, because it was lighter, I just stamped right on it and popped it up. Put a little decoration on it. Same thing, just put the mat on it. Using all the same sizes. Using the same size mats. And then I just used whatever scraps I had. And I thought, well, this is perfect. I did trim this one. This one was longer. And I did trim it a bit shorter. But it all just happened to work out. So I just left it that way. So, yes, you can purposely take a piece and make it into that. But you could also just use what you have left. So I thought, what if I did it landscape? Would it look as good? Because I tend to make 99% of my cards seem to be portrait. Well, guess what? It does work in landscape, and it looks just as good. It just depends what direction your paper is, right? So here's 3 more of those exact same sizes, and then I had some of these longer skinny strips that are non-directional. They really don't matter which way they go. And so I used those ones. And this card is just fantastic. I love it. So same layer and just a bunch of scraps. I trimmed this one shorter. I trimmed this one shorter. They weren't much bigger. Like we're talking maybe trim a 1/4 inch off or something. And this long piece here was a little bit too wide for what I wanted, and so I trimmed it, like I trimmed it lengthwise, maybe 1/8 of an inch or something. So these were just the scraps that were left. Use what you got. But didn't this turn out? This paper is just, oh, these blues, love it. So then I made the cards, and I mean, I was happy. I got the one card I wanted, but I can't stop. I like to play, and I like to make cards, and I couldn't stop. So then I thought, well, what if I just made the original card? So I started to make the original card, which I'll show you again. So this is the original card, which as far as I can tell from my, oops, that's a little too high, my not so good picture, is this looks like an old olive base. And then it looks like they've just used some white DSP. And they've stamped just the acorn and the mushroom alternating in, I'm going to say, maybe early espresso and maybe Cajun for the mushroom. I don't know. So I saw that. Now here's the thing about casing other people's cards. It's great. And I could copy this exactly, and as long as I say I got this idea from Stampin' Up, then boom, we're all good. I tend to case things with my own tweaks to them. So here's my version of that card. Now I don't use Cajun Craze a lot, but I use it in the fall all the time. I think it is the perfect fall color. So I used Cajun Craze, and I cut these all out of Very Vanilla. And I used, again, each of the images in the stamp set. This is the Gathering Together stamp set, which I had already cleaned up and put away. But as you can see, now not all of these images are small enough to fit, but I made it work. There's also a couple little background pieces. And I think the width of this I was guessing at, but I think it's this width because they used this stamp on their sample, right? And this stamp is fairly big with the big capital E and the G hanging down. So that's why when I guessed, I was like, yeah, that looks right, because that's the stamp set that they used. But I wasn't going to use that stamp set. So for my sample, as you will notice, I just made it thinner. And in this case, I made it 1.25 inches like the squares. And I just put them closer together. Because somebody else's card idea is, you can, like I said, you can copy it exactly, or it could just be a jumping off point. It can just give you an idea. It gave me an idea. I did this because you'll notice my sentiment, oops, I'll move that over a little bit, is narrower, or not as tall, I guess maybe that's the right word, as the one that they used in the sample. So I did this one. And yes, I will take pictures of these two and include them for you as well. Now, because I shrunk this down, maybe I had a little bit too much space here. So I did put, if I get the right angle, I did just take a 4 by 5.25, like just a standard layer, and I embossed it. And I think you'll be able to see it in the picture, but I'm having a heck of a time making it show in the video. So I just put that behind. Now it turns out that this is 4, and these spread evenly at 4. So it's nice because I could just use the edge of that layer to line all my pieces up and then just pop the layer on. And I put a little bow and a little embellishments, and you know, love how this card turned out. So I still think that I copied this card from Stampin' Up. I just made it my own. But I would still give credit for the layout to Stampin' Up. So then, what did we say the story was called again? What if I made the same card, but instead of stamping pictures, I used the DSP. So grabbed a different pack of DSP. I'm stoked at how this card turned out. So this is the traditional Christmas DSP, and it's mostly traditional, right? It's cherry cobbler and real red, and there's old olive, but they've put a whole bunch of Secret C in it. Now, Secret C is like, you know, when they say orange is the new black. No, Secret C is the new black. It is such a good neutral color, and it's a nice dark color, and honestly, I think it goes with everything. So it's in the background of these two pieces. These ones are cherry cobbler, and I did play a little bit. I have a couple extra squares punched out now that I have because I was trying a few different things, but I like the way this turned out with having 4 of them. I mean, they're not exactly the same, but they're punched out of the same sheet, and then these 2 are punched out of the same sheet. And then this one is actually only 1 inch wide instead of 1.25 inches because it happened to be a piece that was in my package that was 4 by 1. And it worked well enough that I just made this a little bit narrower. I was putting the sentiment over top of it anyway, so it really didn't matter. So then I ended up with this one. And this one I left this plain. I was going for a little more simple look. And I do like the way it looks. I think maybe because the Cajun is such a dark color, it was too much of the flat dark color, but somehow the white is okay. I don't know. Anyways, I like this one. So then I thought, well, what if I, instead of trying to like put an embossed layer to fill in this top space, what if I just added a little more, couple more squares? So we ended up with this. This was our final card of the adventure that I was on. So what if I just fill the card with DSP? So these are the same squares. This was a piece that was, I think, about 1.5 inches wide. And originally I had it in the middle, and then I was like, well, should I put something on either side? But I'm like, no, I still got to put a sentiment. So I made the sentiment piece, and what I thought was 1.25 inches. But it was a little bit bigger than that. And when I stamped it too low, so it was really off kilter. So I trimmed this piece down to 1 inch, and I put just a little 1.25 inch green piece behind it. So then this one, when I trimmed them, these strips are each 1/2 inch. And really, there was just, make the numbers work. I have even spacing everywhere because that's important to me. And this is actually, all of these layers are actually stuck to a layer, and then I put the layer down, because that way I'm not pulling up on the card base. I was working on the layer. And then this is just this is actually one image, 2, 3, 4 pieces that I cut out of the DSP, because I don't actually have this stamp set. I just have the DSP for it. I do have the sort of accompanying stamp set, which is called Traditional Labels, and has some great sentiments in it. That's where this one came from. So I just stretched it out and made it work. So to me, I still copied this layout. I just definitely added to it and tweaked it a bit. And while this card is not really my style, it's very floral, it's very gold. I don't really like gold. It's very fancy. I adore this card. So I had quite the journey of my card making. But it was so much fun. So I encourage you, when you're looking for something, whether it's a stamp set that you have that you want to use, or it's a layout you want to use, or you're just looking for inspiration and you say, what if you took one of these layouts that I made and you just put your spin on it? What if you changed it and used your DSP or your stamp set or your idea to tweak it to make it your own, and you get the card you want, plus many more, and a couple hours of really fun crafting. So I'll take pictures. I'll give you measurements. It was a lot of fun. I hope you guys try it, and I hope you guys have a fantastic weekend. We'll talk next week. Thanks. Bye.